Steve Inskeep. If you host a Springsteen concert, you go on Springsteen time. Bruce this week set a record for his longest concert, 4 hours and 1 minute. And in September, he plays Foxborough, Massachusetts, where authorities decided they must change the rules. The stadium has a curfew, 11:15, which won't do. Foxborough lawmakers have now voted to extend it to 11:30. It's Morning Edition.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Camila Domonoske. I'm a reporter with NPR. I write about breaking news for our two-way blog. And we're here this morning, like we are most weekday mornings, to talk about the day's news. We'll begin with an overview on the headlines from newscaster Barbara Klein. Then we're going to sit down with Marilyn Juax of our business desk and take a good hard look at the new jobs report. What is in it and what it means. If you have any questions about that, be sure to pop them into the comments and we'll see how many of them we can get to. But let's get started with the headlines. So we're talking to Barbara today. Corva Coleman, who usually joins us, is out, and it looks like Barbara is hard at work. So we'll just hop over here if we can interrupt you really quickly.
Yeah, I'm doing some important research here on the top stories of the day. Excuse me. This is another top story.
I didn't know you were into MMA.
Curling. I'm into curling, and I'm going to report on the latest curling statistics. I've got a lot of very important things to do here. So, what can I do for you?
Can you give us a look at the top headlines of the day? I know there were some tech stories that were on your newscast.
Yeah, a couple of tech stories, especially for people who bought the Samsung Galaxy 7 smartphone company is recalling all of them and stopping its sale because apparently they've had reports of batteries catching on fire.
That's not what you want.
No, not apparently. I haven't talked to Samsung directly to get that quote, but that's my guess. And they were expecting this to be a major competitor in the smartphone field. So that and Tim Cook got a boost. Apple's CEO Tim Cook got a boost today from the Irish government. They have decided that they're going to try to appeal the European Commission's decision to fine them $14.5 billion in back tax, or make them repay $14.5 billion in back taxes plus interest. The Irish Parliament has to vote on it to endorse the decision, but those are our two big tech stories.
All right. And then I know a hurricane or a tropical storm, Hermine, is powering across the south, right?
Yeah, it is. It's lost strength, but it's dumped a lot of water. Storm surge along the Florida's Gulf Coast, northern Gulf Coast, is going to be a big problem. And some meteorologists say as much as 10 inches could fall throughout much of the southeast. So this is going to go much further than Florida or Georgia, where I believe the eye is now.
Yeah, and this is all coming also as there's Zika news coming up.
Right, and Florida's governor, by the way, one person has died from a tree falling on him. But he's also asking residents to make sure to clean up any standing water because it can be a breeding ground for mosquitoes that carry Zika.
Wow. Yeah. And then one final story that I wanted to ask you about. I hear there's some kind of update on the Brock Turner situation. Oh,
he is out of jail. He served 3 of the 6 months he was sentenced to serve in California for sexually assaulting an intoxicated young woman who was unconscious. And that, of course, that was considered a lenient sentence by many. Florida since changed, made a stricter law on sexual assault, and there were apparently a lot of people at the jail when he left this morning crying foul. But it is typical for people to be released from county jail in California after serving half their term.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that. We'll let you get back to your
I got
research.
Important things to do. Thank you.
Newscaster Barbara Klein giving us an update on the top headlines of the day. If you're just joining us, my name is Camila Domonoske. I'm a reporter with NPR's Two-Way blog. We were just talking to Barbara Klein about the top news of the day, and now we're heading over. We're going to talk to Marilyn Juax of our business desk, take a long, close look not too long, but pretty close, at the jobs report that just came out today talking about what happened in the U.S. economy in the month of August. I can't believe it's September already. Can we also talk about that for a second?
Yes, because it's September and I'm wearing white pants, but I want the record to reflect it's not yet Labor Day.
Right, we can still squeeze them in there.
There you go.
I missed the memo, clearly.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. What we got today was a new jobs report that showed that 151,000 jobs were created in August. And as you can see from this chart, that's down. You know, it was a strong summer for hiring, like really strong. I added this little note here. It was 271,000 jobs in June and 275,000 in July. Now that's really quite strong. That's a lot. But then we sort of went off the edge there down to August. So if you look at the 3-month average, if you put those three together, you'd be about here, which is pretty good. But if you look at the whole year, it's 182,000. So I guess,
that was a really, that noise carried a lot of meaning.
Yeah, this is allow me to speak like an economist. Yeah. It's good news in a lot of ways. It's great. It was fantastic. But since it's cooling, and May was pretty bad, maybe we just had a big, really strong time in there, and maybe it's just kind of cooling off a little here. So I would say that I've looked at a lot of economists' assessments, and a phrase that's come up that has come up quite a few times is mildly disappointing.
Mildly disappointing.
Mildly disappointing.
Can we talk about the unemployment rate,
But
too?
the unemployment rate has been holding steady for 3 months now at 4.9%. So when I talk about mildly disappointing, let's look at the big picture here. I mean, here was the recession. Remember that? That was very bad. That was hideous. So unemployment shot to 10% in this phase, and that was really awful. This was sort of the end of the Bush era. We had a housing boom there that went really well. The recession hit. That was terrible. President Obama came in, and it started going down. So what the Obama administration argues is that this is, while it wasn't a quick recovery, it didn't go like that, it's been a long glide towards a very good rate, and it's holding steady. So again, which way do you want to look at this? If you had a great number this month, maybe it would have gone down a little bit more. And most economists call full employment at about 4.6. So we're still shy of what would be considered full employment. But there's another way to look at this that makes your head spin here. We'll just spin our heads for a minute. Since 2010, okay, well, why don't you hold that one? Since 2010, what we've seen is about 15.1 million jobs created. Like if you took all of these numbers and you went back to 2010, you'd get to 15.1 million. So that's great. It's actually, terrific. But some economists, when they look at that number, say, if you really wanted to get back to where we were here when the unemployment rate was 4.4, you still need to add another million jobs. So we're still, even though we've had 15 million jobs added, we're still shy 1 million to get back to pre-recession levels. So some people would argue, gosh, isn't that an awful lot of years? I mean, it took a very short amount of time to inflict a lot of pain. It's taken a very long time to bring things back, to heal that hurt. But some people would argue that was such a traumatic event that of course it's going to take time. That involved a really bad housing market, and those things take time. Another way of looking at this, if you didn't have oil prices drop as much as they have, maybe things would be a little bit better. You could look at it that way. We've seen about 250,000 mining jobs disappear, and just last month there were another 4,000 mining jobs lost. When you're talking about oil, coal, a lot of those extraction type jobs, they've really taken a beating lately. And those are a lot of global factors. There's kind of not that much you could do about it. If OPEC is going to pump a lot of oil and so are we, then maybe you're going to lose a lot of drilling and mining and logging jobs. So some of that is a little bit out of our hands. On the other hand, and because we're talking about economics here, I'll give you both hands. Maybe we've created more jobs because those low energy prices have allowed people to travel more.
Yeah.
So one of the things that that one could take note of is that this Labor Day weekend, if you're going for a drive, you're looking at the cheapest gas prices we've seen since 2004. The average price going into this holiday weekend is nationwide. Of course, it's different. It's higher in California and lower, blah, blah, blah. But the average is $224,000, according to the Energy Information Agency. So $2.24 for an average is really cheap. It's 27 cents a gallon less than last year, and it's way cheaper than it was in 2014.
Wow.
So my point in all of that yammering about gas prices is that people are traveling, so what we're really seeing a lot more of is gas consumption because we're going places, and therefore we've seen this big surge in the past year in jobs related to food and drink. You know, if you're running a restaurant and you're serving beer or whatever, jobs in that category, more than 300,000 have been added in the past year.
Right, so mining jobs down, but food service jobs way up.
Traveling, gasoline, all of those things. So maybe most people are a little bit happier because we've had this easier travel time.
Well, let me interrupt you right there and just say if you have any questions for us, you can feel free to pop them in the comments on Facebook. And what sorts of things are folks on Facebook saying right now?
I think people are really appreciating the breakdown of which kinds of jobs these include. And
Yeah.
also, is it part-time? Does it only part-time, only full-time, or is it part-time?
So the kinds of jobs that people have, whether it's full-time or part-time, this is something that comes up a lot every time we have these reports. People say, like, it depends a lot what kind of jobs are created.
Again, these things can be confusing because a lot of what we're seeing, what's being created, is really good jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, great jobs, such jobs that nobody can qualify for them. They're so darn
Yeah.
good. They pay well. They're
the healthcare jobs,
yeah,
things like
they're
that, you mean?
healthcare jobs, financial services. Actually, right now, there are about 5.6 million jobs open, just waiting for somebody to come and fill them. That's a lot of open jobs. And as a matter of fact, in manufacturing, there are more open jobs than there has been at any time since 2009, since the worst of the recession. We have a lot of open jobs. The problem is people are in the wrong place to take them.
Geographically.
Geographically, like they may be tied to a house in Michigan and the job is in South Carolina,
Right.
you know, at a Boeing plant or an auto plant. So getting people in manufacturing to move from where they are to where the jobs are now is a challenge. But another thing is that it's the more skilled jobs. It's tool and die makers, the higher end kinds of jobs that are open right now. So when people say, well, there are only bad jobs out there, actually, that's not what the statistics show. Yes, there is a growth in low-paying restaurant jobs and things like that, but there's this surge in good jobs, and there's just a tremendous mismatch between who's applying for jobs and what the jobs are. So we've got to do more on job training, help with relocation, those kinds of things. And now there's another point I wanted to make about what's happening in the job market. One of the things that's kind of interesting, what was unchanged is the labor force participation rate. You want to have a lot of people in the workforce because that means you have more people to draw from. Employers like it when there are lots of workers. But we're not participating in the labor market at the level that we used to. But it's been unchanged for a while. 62.8% of the working potential workers are in the job force. It's been holding at that rate. Actually, that's the same rate that we had in October of 2013. So we haven't really gotten more people into the workforce, but then again, because it's economics, one hand, other hand, on the one hand, you'd like to see more people coming into that labor force. On the other hand, there are millions, I mean millions and millions, like as in tens of millions, of baby boomers who are aging out of the workforce. So you could look at it as, this is disappointing that we don't have a higher labor force participation rate. Or you could say, yay, thank God, all these baby boomers are retiring and we're still holding at 62.8. So either the job participation rate is great news or it's bad news. It's complicated. But that gives us lots to talk about during the election season because
Oh, yeah.
what you can see in all of these numbers is whatever you want. You can see depressing facts about mining. If you lived in West Virginia, you'd be pretty frustrated this fall. A lot of people have lost work. Eastern Kentucky. There are many parts of the country where you could look at these jobs numbers and say, wow, this is awful, I'm suffering. There are lots of places in the country where you could look at jobs numbers and say, holy cow, this is terrific. We can't find enough workers.
Yeah.
And there's one other thing, I don't think we've gotten to this chart yet.
Yeah, that's also important, right? What do jobs actually pay? That's something everyone cares about.
This is, again, this is an average. So, this is a lot of different workers. There are some, brain surgeons in there or whatever. So, but when you get to the average, this is about where you're at for nationwide. Again, this is a number that you could look at it and say, wages hardly moved at all in August. Nobody got raises. Well, but over the past year, incomes, paychecks are up about almost 2.5%. Well, inflation has been non-existent in the past year, thanks to those cheap gas prices and other kinds of energy prices. So if you have essentially no inflation across the board, and you have 2.5% raises, well, actually, that's pretty good. But we had such a terrible time in here that wages didn't budge for years and years.
Yeah.
So
again, it's about catching up, right? Getting back to pre-recession.
Right. So I'm just trying to make everybody crazy here by pointing out
On
that
the one hand and on the
everything
other
has
hand.
two sides to it. But
So actually, let's check in with Facebook. Are they going crazy? Have we?
David would like to know where the heck he can earn $25 an hour.
Again, this is an average, and we're not talking about a median where half is above, half is below. If you were working in anything to do with computer science, you'd be making a whole lot more than that. I mean, if you were an engineering degree, you could make many, many, many times that amount for your opening salaries. I mean, I've seen some engineering jobs. Kids come out of college and they're making $100,000. You can start with a starting salary of 2 or 3 times that. But you have to have the right skills. You can't expect a high-paying job these days without a high level of skill.
Yeah, so it's recession recovery for some people and not so much for others.
And not
right?
so much for others. So if you're working as a busboy, maybe you're really making a lot less than that. If you're working as for the Google, then you're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
It's really, these are about averages, and different parts of the country pay different things. There's really quite a wide range. So all we can look at with these numbers is an average.
Can I ask you really quickly about what this jobs report means for the interest rate for the Fed?
Yes, and then there's that's one other big thing that we should get to. Let me pull out my other hands here.
No.
You knew I was going to do that.
Right?
I've read everything, and I got to say, it's like comical how when I read through what the economists are saying, half of them are looking at this jobs report and saying this absolutely keeps the Federal Reserve from raising interest rates in September, because there's one line of thinking that the Fed needs to raise interest rates back to more historically normal levels. If you've looked at mortgage rates, for example, they're really quite low. All lending rates are much significantly below their historic averages. So a lot of people think, hey, come on, the economy's really pretty good. Let's get back to normal. Let's say we just, if the jobless rate is back to normal, why aren't interest rates back to normal? So they would like to see the Federal Reserve return to more historically typical levels of interest rates. Other people say, whoa, wait a minute, didn't I just tell you that there's 1 million jobs still missing? Didn't I just say that the momentum is being lost? I mean, if you see something dropping off, is that the time to raise interest rates?
We just talk about all the people who are hurting and
and there's still parts of the country that are terrible. Why on earth would you raise interest rates when job creation is falling? So half the economists are saying, we need to get back to normal. These are good times. Stop worrying about little details. Get the interest rates, start nudging them back up, maintain the credibility of the Federal Reserve, and raise interest rates back to at least start to move them more in a historically normal direction. Others are saying, you're nuts. Wait till we get back those million jobs. Wait till we get back to stronger job growth. It'd be a big mistake to raise interest rates in September. On balance, I would say the Federal Reserve does not like to get in the way of presidential elections. September will be a hot month for, that's right when the Fed is meeting, is around the time of the first presidential debate. If you raised interest rates at that moment, it could have a bad impact on maybe the stock market.
Yeah.
It could make people jittery. It could destabilize things. We've come this far. Why not wait until right after the election? So there is a large body of thinking that they're just the Fed, even if they would like to raise interest rates in September, they're going to restrain themselves, and they'll wait until after the election and raise interest rates in December.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
This is Marilyn Juax from NPR's Business Desk. I'm Camila Domonoske. I report with the Two-Way blog, and we will see you again tomorrow morning for another look at the day's news. Have a great day.